And then we move on to our second case study. And now we are connecting again back to France. Do we have Jonah there online?
Yes,
Good morning.
I'm here.
Good morning, Jonah. I guess it's 1 hour earlier, so it's still morning there in France. Great to see you. So, Jonah Ehmann, you are the head of agronomic operations in Nataïs, and you're going to be telling us about Naturellement Pop Corn Project carbon payments. So, the floor is yours. Great to meet you, Jonah.
I'll share my screen quickly. I hope you can see my presentation okay. So, good morning, everyone. Thanks to the Baltic Sea Action Group for the invite for today's webinar. So, as Laura mentioned, so Nataïs, we're a company based in the southwest of France, and we've been working for a number of years to work on a carbon footprint measurement system and a financial incentive for the farmers to sequestrate carbon. So to start, just to give a bit of context, who we are. So Nataïs, we're the European leader in popcorn. We have 40% market share in Europe. So we also export to Finland. We produce roughly 210 million bags of microwave popcorn. We harvest 57,000 tons of popcorn. We have a turnover of 65 million euros. So we have three main activities. We produce, as I mentioned, microwave popcorn. We also supply cinemas and companies that produce ready-to-eat popcorn, so already popped popcorn, all over Europe. And we also recently started multigram, which stands for smaller bags of 500 grams, for example, that you would find in the supermarket of unpopped kernels. We export 90% of our production, and most of our production, so of the production of popcorn, is produced in the southwest of France around the factory. And we have a very close partnership with 250 farmers who we work in a very strong link. So the company was started by my father, and we're a farming family, and so farming has always been we always been very strongly attached to farming. And so the Naturellement Pop Corn Project, so we started this in 2019 with 5 partners. So there's some agronomic research. There's one agronomic research partner, which is the INRAE. We also work with Agrodoc, who is a local cooperative that advises farming in conservation agriculture. And the last, the CESBio partner. So these are French research organism who is specialized in using satellite imagery for different applications. So our goal in this Naturellement Pop Corn project, so it's one of the aspects of that project, which I'm talking to you about today, is the farming side of that project. So our main goal is to increase the soil fertility through natural processes by increasing soil carbon storage. So how do we do that? It's mainly through reducing tillage and the use of cover crops. So you'll see a bit later in the presentation, we believe that cover crops is a huge opportunity for farmers to store carbon in the soil. Of course, we want to help, to do that, the farmers need to gain from it. So we need to make sure that we enable farmers to reduce the carbon footprint. And finally, we also want to meet consumers and industry demand for sustainability. We are in a good position because we have a direct link between the farmer, so the producer of the crop, and the customers who are more and more looking for ways to improve their carbon footprint. And so the carbon indicator, carbon storage indicator, we think is a very powerful tool, because a soil that stores carbon is a healthier soil, because we'll increase organic matter. A healthier soil will produce healthier plants, will improve water infiltration, will improve water storage, and it's a great communication tool because it's something that's easy to understand for the farmer. It's easy to understand, of course, for us as a farm food company, and it's a great communication tool, of course, for the greater public. It's also for us because we're looking to work with farmers all over the southwest of France. It's a great way to find new growers, and it's important for us from a communication point of level to make the farmers proud again. So I'm sure it's the same in many other countries. Farmers are often accused of destroying the environment and many other pretty negative things. And we want to change that, and we want to make the farmers proud of what they're doing. And if we can tell society and the local people, so our farmers are storing carbon, it's a very powerful way to make agriculture and our farmers looked at in a positive way. So today we already have 60% of our farmers that use cover crops and therefore are storing carbon. So our project, as I mentioned a bit initially, so we work with the farmers, we work with research organizations, and between the three of us, we're trying to build something where which allows to measure carbon stored in the fields through the cover crops. So the goal is for the farmers to reward them for the environmental service they provide. We're also working with a farmers association to see how we can, what else we can do to store more carbon. So, you know, implement hedges and trees and things like that. We're working with a research organization to develop that monitoring tool. And we as a Nataïs, as a agri-food company, it's a great way to stand out from our competition. Buyers are becoming more and more sensitive to these issues, and also locally, we're seen as from the farmers and also from the greater public as bringing something positive to the local communities. So, in a few words, our journey towards this. So, since 2012, we've been encouraging our farmers to put in cover crops by having a bonus for farmers that would put in these cover crops in. So originally, the reason why we wanted to put cover crops in was we're in an area where there's a lot of soil erosion, and cover crops are a great way to reduce soil erosion. But obviously, it's also it has a lot of other environmental benefits, and so this is why since 2012 we've been trying to help farmers via a bonus to switch to implementing cover crops, and we've also put other incentives for reduced tillage and things like that. But we wanted to find a way to encourage farmers to have more how can I say, to have to improve their cover crops, and not only put them in, but also have very good levels of biomass, because increased biomass means increased carbon storage, which means soils are restoring themselves better, and all the other benefits I mentioned earlier. So we launched this project, so Naturellement Pop Corn, to start working on a way to measure the biomass produced in the fields through the cover crops. So currently we're finalizing the model that will enable to measure the biomass through satellite imagery. So satellite imagery has a great advantage, is that it's repeatable, it's easily scalable, and every 3 days through the Sentinel satellite network, we get a value of the biomass produced in the field with the spatial variability. We are in an area where there's well, I mean, every area in the world has some kind of variability within a field, but because we're on slopes, there's a lot of variability in a field, and we can capture that because the satellites have a resolution of 10 meters by 10 meters. And so we convert the biomass produced with these cover crops into a long-term carbon storage in the field. And so we're moving from a model where we paid if there was a cover crop to a model where we pay depending on how much carbon has been stored in the cover crops in the soil. So we're at the beginning of this journey, but we worked with a group of pilot farms for the past 3 years to help with the CESBio, so the research organism, to perfect their model. And now for next year's contract, to the farmers contract, we're scaling out and offering to all the farmers a bonus that will be paid on the actual carbon they will have stored in the field. And so later on we'll perfect the model by adding other parameters to be even more accurate, such as soil data and other things that other data available that will have an impact on the carbon footprint of the farmer. So key message is every incentive, or we believe that every incentive to produce more biomass is a very powerful tool to increase carbon storage in soils. So we believe that our approach is quite pragmatic and easy to understand, and I think that's quite important because there's a lot of initiatives appearing, and we need something. If it's too complex, the farmer won't go for it because the key element will be lost. And so yes, incentive to produce biomass, we believe, is very important to increase the carbon storage in soils. it has huge potential. As it was mentioned earlier by Paul, the soils have a huge potential to hold on to carbon, and that's why we put a lot of focus on that. When you look in greater detail, the other aspects like fertilizer or farming like machinery and diesel and things like that don't count for so much in the carbon footprint. Of course, these are things we need to work on, but for us the priority is on implementing cover crops. As I mentioned, it's a win-win for all actors in the supply chain, and as I mentioned, we have the advantage of being able to do the link between all the supply chain. And another thing is there's a lot of models appearing, and generally carbon footprint measurement are very complex because there's a huge amount of parameters that are taken into account. And as Laura mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we know what to do, but it's important now to start taking action. And that's what we wanted to do through this project. And of course, it's not perfect, but first, there'll never be a perfect modeling tool. And we believe that even if it's not perfect, we should still start so that we can start acting. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you for your attention. And I'll be able to answer any questions you have at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Jonah, so much for the very clear presentation and very clear take-home messages also. And it was great how you brought the consumer interface to the discussion. So we will have the discussion after the final talk. So great to see, Jonah, you at the discussion and in the chat. Thank you for those all online. We already have a lot of very good questions on the chat. So great to see you, Jonah, during the discussion, so then we can continue. Thank you so much for the very, very clear presentation. Thank you.